if you were mistaken about how vaccines harm people, or if they do at all, if you were actually just wrong, how would you know it? How would you figure it out?
Everybody was just so healthy, and that's not happening.
If people
I mean,
were...
I don't know. That's a hard... How would I know if I was wrong?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not, so I don't know.
How you doing, ladies?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right? Do you have time for a short interview?
Oh, no, is it on camera?
I can point it down at your feet and just get the audio, but I can tell you a little bit more of what it's about.
What is it about?
It's kind of interesting.
Last time we were here. Yeah,
and I ain't doing it.
So what I do is I do short interviews with random people. You pick a belief. It can be really anything. And I just ask Socratic questions to understand what you believe, why you believe it, and how you concluded that it's true. It could be anything. So I've talked to people. I can give you some examples. So I talk to people about karma. They think karma is real and happening. Talk to people about prayer. They believe it works. Zodiac signs, it predicts their day. I talked to someone about aliens and whether they exist. God exists. It could be really anything. But the more interesting talks are something that are deeply held beliefs that you really think is true. And like, let's say, if you didn't have that belief tomorrow, that might affect your actions. It might affect your life. Those tend to be the more interesting talks. But
shoot, if I stop believing in God, you best believe I'll be living a different life.
So I time it for about 10 minutes, just to kind of respect your time, but we can go shorter, longer, or however you like. And I start out with a couple thought exercises.
What would you ask?
What would I ask?
Well, I mean, what, you have to come up with it?
So the basics of it is what you believe, why you believe it, and how did you conclude that it's true.
Who do you work for?
Nobody. I am. This is a hobby.
Oh.
But it is something that's kind of other people are doing. It's called Street Epistemology. So
That's actually really cool.
epistemology is a philosophical term meaning the study of knowledge, or how you know something. And so it's just kind of a hobby of mine. I have a YouTube channel. If it's really interesting, I'll put it up on YouTube. But a lot of times people walk away having a deeper understanding of why they believe something and how they concluded it. But I do ask some tough questions, so I might challenge if you have a method to concluding something is true that may not be as reliable. I may ask some questions that might, challenge you a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just asking questions.
I'm curious to see what it is. Because, like, you're basically saying, okay, I believe in God, and then you ask the question.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I believe in God, and then you ask why.
I talked to someone about, it's like anything. It's just random stuff.
Vaccines.
Yeah. Could be anything.
I know, like, you totally stopped the wrong person. Like, I believe in everything weird.
Okay. So you can pick whatever you would like. We can start off with a couple thought exercises to get it started, and then you can settle on a belief that you want to talk about.
Do it. I want to hear you talk. She gets shorthanded. She gets shorthanded with me.
I get shorthanded with everybody because they think I'm crazy.
It's fun, trust me.
Do you give people Tic Tacs?
Do I give them no, this is part of my thought exercise. Yeah.
So it's recorded.
It is recorded. I don't, I put them up online, and people like to see the more interesting videos. But if you want me to like blur out your face, I could do that. If you want me to like just stick the camera down and just do the audio, I could do that too. But you can always just tell me after the interview, okay, just use audio for that, or don't put that up at all. I'd rather just have the interview.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're worried about that, I can,
Yeah,
you can just tell me.
Blur out everything to me.
Okay.
So just probably look at the floor.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what I would pick to. I don't
All right. Well, you can think about it. We can get started on thought exercises.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thought
How does
exercise.
this happen when we're together? The news stopped her last time. It was like
With my
right here,
twins,
right?
With my twins on Halloween.
Oh, really? I'm definitely not the news. I have about 700 subscribers. That's it.
Why I have probably more questions for you. What led you to do this?
I think it's really fun. I think for me, it's not necessarily about the belief itself, but giving people the tools to understand how to go about concluding something's true. So it's more, for me, it's about talking about the method that we use to conclude something is true. That's more important than
Evidence.
whatever happens to be the belief, the conclusion. The conclusion isn't necessarily as important. What's important to me is the method we use. And so this is just a way for me to kind of get information on how people think, and then if I can if I can get someone to maybe have a more reliable way, a reliable method, that would be awesome. That would be my motive, I guess you would say.
So do you believe in only scientific evidence?
I try to stay neutral as possible, so I can give you all sorts of explanations, and you can get my opinion on everything. But what I don't want to do is, if I give you my opinion, it'll affect the interview.
Yeah.
Right.
I try to stay neutral.
Okay.
That's how my Bible teacher wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's currently down. I believe it's recording. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So first thought exercise. I'm going to give you 3 claims, and I want you to tell me how confident you are that they're true, from a scale from a 0 to 100. So 0% is I'm not confident at all. I don't believe that. 100% being I cannot be mistaken. I'm absolutely sure that that's true. Okay. So the first claim is I own a car. Second claim is I own a Ferrari. And the third claim is I own a space shuttle. Where would you put yourself on a 0% to 100% on the confidence that those are true?
0 for all 3.
Okay. So you are 0% confident that I own a car, a Ferrari, or a space shuttle.
Well, I'll say I don't know that you do. I have no proof, evidence. I haven't seen you in them.
Sure. So.
But there's a good chance you do.
Okay. Well, what does that translate as far as the confidence scale?
A score?
Confidence, like the scale, 0 to 100.
Well, since you're doing the interview, I would probably say a 0, since I already know this is a thought exercise. But if you were a random person and told me you had one,
Okay.
we'd say 2.
So, because I'm going to repeat it back. Just let me know if I'm misunderstanding you. Because I'm out here doing an interview, and you know that it's a thought exercise, you are 0% confident I own a car.
No, I'm not. Okay. I guess I see what you mean. I mean, that one we could give it a 5.
5%.
Because most people have a car.
Okay, so 5
I
out
don't
of
doubt you have some car.
5 out of 100.
Out of 10, right?
I do it 100, so like 50. 50%. Okay, so you're like 50%, like 50-50.
Yeah.
I went on a car, and then the rest are 0, right? Or
that you have a space shuttle.
Or a Ferrari.
I'm sure. I mean, we could say 50%.
For both?
I mean, because it's either you do or you don't. So 50% yes and 50% no.
Okay.
I doubt you do, but I don't know you.
Gotcha.
So...
Okay. All right. So let's do middle of the ground. Let's say Ferrari.
Okay.
Let's stick with that example. What would you have to see or experience or what have you that would increase your confidence from 50%? That I own a Ferrari.
Like you could probably tell me details about the car. Obviously, the best would be like to see you in it, or to like probably see your statement,
My
your bank statement.
Bank statement.
Like
okay.
your payment statement, but Because anybody can go like get in a Ferrari. Well, maybe not anybody, but like
Okay.
you could rent one or whatever. But like it doesn't mean it's yours.
So, okay. So those little things like if I showed you my bank statement and it was like I am like a millionaire, you'd be more confident that I own a Ferrari. If you saw the Ferrari, that would be more confident.
Yeah.
And some other things. Okay, gotcha. So let's say I showed you my bank account and it was like millions of dollars. And let's assume I didn't own a Ferrari. What could you experience or see to lower your confidence from that point?
After you showed me that
Right.
you,
So I'm a millionaire. My name and everything.
at that point, I don't know, like this is gonna sound weird, but like if you're a guy that appears to be single and telling a woman that, I
Okay.
would automatically assume that maybe it's probably not true because you're just trying to pick up a girl.
Alternative motives. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, if you have one, that's great. But like if you're trying to like use it to impress people,
So let's
I would
say
think-
I'm actually a millionaire, but I don't actually own a Ferrari. I own a other expensive car, and I just might have just picked that or something.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So moving on to the second thought exercise involving the Tic Tacs. Would you agree that the amount of Tic Tacs in this container is either even or odd, and it cannot be both?
yes,
Okay. So let's say you picked even and I picked odd. We popped it open, poured it all out, counted it up, and it was 18. Would you agree that you were correct and I was mistaken?
yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
You were mistaken on your guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not your question, I promise.
Okay. I was like, wait. Yeah.
Sometimes that stumps people and I have to kind of stop there. All right. So where would you rate your confidence that you can accurately guess without opening up and popping it open? What would you say is your confidence that you can accurately guess whether it's even or odd on a 0 to 100? 50-50?
Because there's only two options, so
Okay.
like if you calculate it, that's only 50%.
Okay. If I were to put an antecedent into it, meaning if I were to say, if you accurately guessed which, if it was the correct amount or the correct even or odd, would that, like if I could say I give you $100 if you're correct, would that move you on that 50% up or down? Would you be more confident or less confident?
No.
You'd do the same?
It'd be the same because either it is or it's not.
Okay. So if I were to say I would give you $1 million if you could guess correctly, would that affect your confidence whether you can guess correctly?
No. I would just hope I was right more.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect
Hmm.
the percentage because I either am not or I am.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me read back. You're saying if I added some reward to it, it would increase your hope, but it would not increase your confidence that you could guess.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Unless I could do a Google search of how many come in a Tic Tac beforehand.
That might work.
But other than that, no, because I'm either half, there's only two options there.
Gotcha. Okay. So now this is the point where you pick a belief. It could be, I think, it could be really anything, but if it's something that you are fairly certain of, and it's something...
Vaccines.
Vaccines. Okay.
Let's go there.
All right. It's happening.
It's happening.
Okay.
It's very controversial, so I don't like to talk about it out loud, but I am 100% in my beliefs, and I will never be shaken.
Okay. So what specifically do you believe about vaccines?
I believe they're harmful, and for me and my family, we won't do them.
Okay. Gotcha. So what is the main reason you are so confident?
Because of years of research on my part.
Okay. So research. Hypothetically speaking, let's just say that you discovered the research that you looked into was faulty or in some way not reliable, would that affect your confidence that vaccines are harmful?
Well, I have research from many different sources. So do you mean all sources
Sure.
are wrong?
So yeah, the research that you've done thus far, that they were faulty in some way. It doesn't necessarily matter why, but if you came to the understanding that those were faulty, that they were not legitimate or something like that, would that affect your confidence from 100%?
It would cause me to just do more research, but I also have personal experience along with the
Okay.
research, so that would help.
Gotcha. So you have personal experience with it, and research. If I would pie chart those two reasons, which one do you think gives you the most confidence?
Research.
It's the research? Okay.
But I mean, I've read personal stories. I've taken care of people that were injured.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it could be like empathy, and some of it is firsthand knowledge, and then the other is experience, and in the research. So.
Okay. So those two, what would you say the percentage is of, if you were to talk about the entire reason why you're so confident, would research be, how much portion of that confidence would you attribute it to research, and how much would you attribute it to personal experience? So if you had a little pie chart, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I mean,
is it mostly research? Is it 50-50? Is it 75-25?
we can say 50-50, but as far the research is what pulled the weight in my brain because I needed proof.
Gotcha. So it's 50-50.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I asked you if you found out that the research was faulty, you said it would not affect your confidence. So my question is, why does having that research give you the kind of to go over the edge in confidence that you know that it's true, but if you didn't have it, it wouldn't have the opposite effect?
Because I would know that there's still a cause that we don't know about because of the experience I've had. Something else is causing it. I've taken care of people who are paralyzed from it. I have family members who have children that are brain damaged because of it.
Oh, I see.
So, those experiences, I know something caused it. So if it wasn't that, then there's something else.
Okay, let me repeat it back to make sure I understand. You're saying the research that you've done tells you what's caused it, but if you didn't have that research, it wouldn't change the fact that it is harmful. It's just the research would tell you what's causing it.
Right.
So if you had no research at all, you would still be confident that that it is harmful. You just may not know what it is. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. So what's the best example from personal experience that gives you confidence that vaccines are harmful?
From personal experience only?
Right.
Well, I mean, my child slept for 2 days after getting a vaccine, his first vaccines, and he had a fever. And I have pretty extensive knowledge of how the body works, and I know that that's not normal.
Okay.
I know that's your brain trying to
Recover?
recoup from the toxins.
Okay.
And also, I've had patients that were completely paralyzed after a flu shot for weeks.
Okay.
Right after.
Okay. So let's go with the patient example. How did you determine the vaccines were the cause of the harm that you saw?
Well, when you go through the reports and the just everything that they tell you as a nurse and as a doctor, you would, well, mostly a nurse, you would just take a report and you would ask about everything in their life. basically. It's what we're taught. You
Mhm.
know, how, what, when, where, why. What medications are you on? What's your lifestyle? What are your symptoms? Has anything happened to you? Has there been any change in the last 24 hours? Any change in the last week? What have you done that's new?
Mm.
Are you on anything new? Did you try anything new with any products you have? Did you eat something new? You know, have you been to another country?
Mm.
Like details on their life.
So you're saying that you do a what's the word? Diagnosis,
Yes.
and the common theme was I got vaccinated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you discovered that other people have gotten vaccines and been fine, would that decrease or increase your confidence that vaccines are harmful? How would that affect your confidence?
It doesn't decrease it.
Okay.
Because I know that a lot of people have genetic mutations that, like the MTHFR mutation, which it's estimated like 60% of people have now because of the chemicals that we've been using, our government has been using, the chemicals on our food. Glyphosate is causing people, their genes to mutate in a way that they can't detox heavy metals. So we were created in a way that we should be able to detoxify. But because of modern day living practices, the way we eat, the way we live, fast food, man-made foods, chemicals, our body is constantly, what's the word? It's constantly being bogged down with everything. So a normal like occurrence of being introduced to something, you should be able to detoxify. But it's because we're so bogged down. But with the MTHFR, they can't detox the heavy metals, so they build up. And so those kids are usually the ones that are more likely to have seizures or to become autistic, develop cancer.
Okay, so that chemical I think you're talking about,
Glyphosate?
that's within vaccines? Is that what or
It's, well, in a roundabout probably, but it's actually it's considered the Roundup chemical. It's what's sprayed on all of our commercially grown food.
So that's not vaccines, that's something different that...
Well, it's found in vaccines too, because it's on everything, but I'm saying it's part of the lifestyle that we lead that's led up to some issues.
So is it possible that vaccines may not be as harmful as you think? It just could be someone's at that tipping point and vaccines tip us.
They're always harmful, 100% all the time. But that's the reason why, in an argument to why some kids have a reaction and some don't. Some people are paralyzed, some people aren't. There's a lot that plays into why you would see an effect right then or why you would develop cancer 50 years later and not connect it to the vaccines.
Gotcha. Okay. So how would... Let me ask you this. If you were mistaken about how vaccines harm people, or if they do at all, if you were actually just wrong, how would you know it? How would you figure it out?
Everybody was just so healthy, and that's not happening.
If people
I don't know. That's a hard... How would I know if I was wrong?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not, so I don't know.
So I guess my question is, if you don't have a feedback loop, if you don't have a way to discover that you're mistaken, how can you be 100% sure that you aren't?
Because I don't have to be proven that I'm wrong to know that I'm right.
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying, how would I know what makes me so confident? Like, if I found out that I was wrong, how could I be so confident that I'm right?
No. The question is, if you have no way to discover that you're mistaken, how can you be 100%? like is
if
it
I
is it
didn't-
possible that you are mistaken, but you have no way to figure it out?
No.
Why is that not a possibility?
Because I do have ways.
What way do you know of that you could discover that you're mistaken?
I mean, I haven't seen a way yet.
So if you don't have a way to discover you're mistaken, is it not possible that you are and you just can't figure it out?
No. No, because in relation to the vaccines,
Mm-hmm.
I've been through, it's a process
Mhm.
to go through all this, because you think, okay, if that's true, if all this is true, which all the evidence says it's true, anybody can read it, they just have to want to go look at it. So it's 100% true, but why would they still recommend this? Why would they still recommend that you get vaccines? So then you dive into why. So then you find out about government corruption. You find out about how much money they make off of it. You find out about how America, their number one money making industry is healthcare.
Okay.
So if everyone's healthy,
Is it
how are they making money?
is it possible that that's all true, that people are making money off of, or the government's making money off of healthcare, and there's corruption, and its vaccines still work? Is that possible?
It could be possible, but it's not.
Okay. So how would you figure, like, let me kind of give an example. So something real simple like gravity. I think we all would agree that gravity is happening. And if you asked me, how would you figure out if you were mistaken about how gravity works? Is there any example that you would accept, or any evidence that you would accept that you were mistaken? I can give tons of examples. So if I let go of this pen and it, for some reason, didn't drop, or dropped slower, or went up, or went sideways, or just did something else, that would lower my confidence of my understanding of gravity, and it may not work the way I think it is. And so those are things I can identify to just my feedback loop of, oh, I actually might be mistaken. Now that hasn't happened, but at least I have a way to determine if I'm mistaken. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if you can't identify a way that to discover you're mistaken about this, how could you ever be 100%?
Well, the way, like I said earlier, the way I would be mistaken is if all these things stop happening, and they're not. They're increasing.
The
damage,
okay.
the injury, children dying in the middle of the night after vaccines, all these things that happen way more frequently than are talked about. If
Okay.
they stopped happening.
Okay, so if people stopped having health issues after getting vaccinated, that would be your way of knowing that you're mistaken about vaccines being harmful.
That's part of it.
Okay.
But then again, I have personal evidence, and I also have the research, and the research still shows me all of these chemicals in there, and I still know what these chemicals do. So even if people were getting healthier, I would still not want to follow through because of what I know is in there.
Okay. Let me kind of recap what we've talked so far, and you just let me know if I'm understanding correctly. You're 100% confident that vaccines cause harm, and it's based off of research and personal experience. And even though if you discovered your research was flawed, it would not lower your confidence that the vaccines are harmful. It would just cause you to not understand why they're harmful or what's causing it. And your personal experience of that gives you the confidence. But even if you discovered other people that weren't harmed, let's say the majority of people weren't harmed, that still wouldn't change your confidence that it's true.
It wouldn't change my confidence that they're not harmful.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what would you accept as evidence that vaccines are safe?
Legitimate studies that are done, proof of what's in there. Except
Of-
I already have the proof, but proof that they changed it. So like if they
Oh, yeah.
didn't use those chemicals.
No, I mean like the vaccines as they are now. What would you accept as a reason to be confident that they actually are safe? Like, what evidence would you accept?
I mean,
Like, let's say you went on a whole research binge right after this talk, and you maybe, looked in some other stuff, and you found more evidence that they're not as harmful. Like, let's hypothetically, if that happened, would you be willing to concede that, okay, they're safe?
that completely depends on what you're calling evidence.
I'm asking you, what would you accept?
I mean, I can't think. I'm thinking what would logically be presented, and I know it wouldn't be, so it's hard for me to say.
Well, I know logically that if I let this go, everything tells me it's going to fall, but I can still tell you what I would accept if I let it go and it didn't. I can still tell you what I would accept as something that would make me question.
But this is a lot more multifaceted than gravity, so
Sure.
it's hard to say.
Right, yeah, it is. So let's go through it. If you discovered your research was flawed, and then you did more research and it was actually in favor that vaccines were safe, if you discovered your personal experience was actually not the norm, would that affect your confidence? Would you accept that?
Based on your questions, I would need a lot more than that
Okay.
because of what I already know.
But if you discovered what you know was actually faulty, would that affect you?
I guess it would,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard to say because I know it's not. You know what I mean? Like, because you can't change things that have actually happened, and you can't change the evidence that I know. Like, you know what I mean? I'm looking at it from that standpoint, but like,
Okay, so you're saying you could never, you can't ever see how the evidence, the research that you've done could be faulty?
yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's hard to like, what could they throw at me that would change my mind? Because I know
Yeah,
so much that it's hard to.
right. So let's say you sat down with someone who had a PhD in this, whatever, and they made vaccines or something, or something like that, and they had no alternative motives, and they were not corrupt, and you knew them personally, and they debunked pretty much everything you thought you knew. Would that affect your confidence?
No, because I have listened to all those people.
You listen to,
I mean, several people that have a PhD in blah, 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 or have an MD in blah, blah, blah. But the problem is they're getting compensated, so there's ulterior motives for them.
right, but if you met someone that you knew that was not corrupt and debunked your research to your satisfaction, if they were able to do that to your satisfaction, and you legitimately were like, oh wow, okay, I'm mistaken, would that affect your confidence?
Yes.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
I can tell you 100%, nobody could debunk. So, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Okay.
so solid in this, and I have went through so many different angles for the evidence, the research, because nobody cares about their baby more than a mom does.
Right.
So you either deal with the guilt now or the guilt later, but I've done more research than most MDs.
Okay. One last question, and then we could be done.
Okay.
If you were to honestly look at your position and based off of this conversation, are you open to being wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because guess what? I used to be on the opposite side.
Right.
But I just didn't have the knowledge. I was ignorant in the subject.
Okay.
Because I had never personally did the research. I didn't have the proof. I just took what they said and I went with it. Because they're, they have the degree. They
Okay.
know more. They're supposed to protect the
Yeah.
the public.
So you do value evidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even if you came across evidence that undermined your position, you wouldn't accept it.
I mean, if it was legitimate research, legitimate evidence,
Yeah.
I would listen, and I would be real curious to know what it is and where it came from.
Okay.
Because of all the other stuff I've already learned.
So what evidence would you accept as a defeater for your position? So like the gravity, and if this happened, if it went up, if it went sideways, if it floated, that's what I would accept to understand that I was actually mistaken. So I know it's multifaceted, but I'm wanting to know, let's stick with the research. What is the evidence you would accept to tell you that you're mistaken?
It's hard to give that a short answer, but I can say, like, the first thing I started with was I went to the CDC's website and I looked up ingredients.
Okay.
For me, that's where it should start. Okay, well, what's in it? Let's learn about that. So I learned about everything that's in it, and from there, that was enough to disturb me to look into more things.
Gotcha. So,
so if they were to say, okay, here's the new vaccines, we've reformulated them, they don't have anything harmful in them, and then you have to think about how, like, the transmission works, how.
Okay, so it's what's in the vaccine that if it was no longer in it, that would be evidence that they are no longer harmful. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so.
But I can also say that if they gave me evidence, I would want more proof behind that.
Because corruption.
You can't just give me a piece of paper and tell me.
So hypothetically, let's say that the ingredients that you discovered to be harmful, you later found out that the amount of those ingredients weren't harmful in vaccines. So, for example, these 5 things, they are harmful to the body, but at a certain dosage they become not harmful. If you discovered that the amount that were in vaccines was at a level that wouldn't harm the body, would that cause you to be a little less confident?
No, because I've looked into that too, and the amount they deem safe isn't safe for all people. We're not all the same. We don't all process everything the same.
Okay.
And they say that it's safe, which proof says it's not already, but then they do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 together.
Okay.
So that safe amount is now triple, or it's multiplied by however many shots they do. But even if you take that and throw it aside, you still have, everyone is individual, like the people with MTHFR, they cannot process that amount. So when you say it's safe for who? A grown adult or a newborn baby?
Okay.
Somebody with genetic problems, or a person that has no problems?
So, hypothetically speaking, let's say you got to a point where you discovered the amount shouldn't be harmful to a baby. Would you question whether the vaccines were actually harming it?
No.
So it's not about not about what's in the vaccines or the amount, is it? Like, if you were just convinced, what if for whatever reason that the amount of stuff in vaccine wouldn't harm a baby? If you were convinced of that, like if you saw it and researched it hypothetically, or you discovered that actually it shouldn't hurt a baby, if you were at that point, that lower your confidence that vaccine was causing the damage.
Would I be less confident?
That the vaccines were the cause?
No.
So it's not about the...
It is.
Oh, it is?
It is about the ingredients